Hello, today I'm reviewing 5 new foundations I've thoroughly tested multiple days in various ways, and I'm giving you my full thoughts. You'll see how they apply and wear on me throughout the day and what skin types I think would benefit the most from each. If you're in your 40s or beyond, you know how tricky it can be to find truly flattering foundations that also wear well throughout the day, which is why I do these deep dive reviews and not just first impressions. I test each foundation over multiple days using different application methods with and without primer, and I always show you what they look like unset and set with powder, and I don't assist these foundations with setting spray. For reference, I'm turning 50 this year and my skin type is oily combination. It's pretty normal and can be dry around the perimeter and shine prone in the center. I also live in year-round humidity and extreme heat most of the year, which makes keeping makeup and foundation in place a challenge, which is one of the reasons why I love doing foundation reviews for you. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. Let's get into it and see how these foundations stack up and if any of them might work for you. I'm starting with Hourglass Illusion Luminous Glow Foundation. I'll have all the foundations I'm sharing, primers and powders I use myself and recommend for all skin types, and what I'm wearing sourced and linked for you through the YouTube shopping icons. If they're available, they don't always have everything, and my description box. Everything will be sourced and linked for you there, along with any videos or anything else I reference. So this retails for $58 for 1.18 ounce. There are 26 shades, and I grabbed it in shade 7, which is a light medium with neutral undertones. It's cruelty-free, vegan, is alcohol-free, and there's no added fragrance, although I do pick up on a slight sunscreen scent upon application that does dissipate after it's applied. That is due to the SPF 30 that's in this product. We always start with the claims in these foundation reviews to see if they actually live up to those claims. So this is supposed to be an all-in-one skincare high-performance foundation that gives you a luminous glow and lasts for up to 12 hours. It is water-based. It's supposed to give you medium buildable, smooth coverage that diminishes the appearance of imperfections and doesn't settle into fine lines. It's not supposed to transfer or crease, and it's supposed to be intensely moisturizing. Although the texture of this is pretty thick, it's creamy and it blends out easily. Although it's not the fastest blending foundation I've ever used, it still blends into your skin really easily. When I apply this with a brush, I do like to press and fuse it into my skin further by pressing a sponge over it. It's just something I like to do sometimes when I apply foundations with a brush. So I give it a 4 for application, and in terms of coverage, I'd say this gives light to just above medium coverage. It has more coverage, in my opinion, than their skin tint in the white bottle, and it feels less tacky to the touch. So I think the claims ring true in terms of coverage, and I'm giving it a 5 there. I agree that this is smooth and luminous before setting it with powder. There appears to be a slight pearlescent quality to it almost, but less so than with, say, Makeup by Mario foundation. That was too pearlescent for me, and it feels nice and hydrating. After setting it with powder, I'd say it has more of a natural finish to it. Now, without primer, I get pretty shiny with this during the day. This clip you're seeing is at around 6 hours. I applied it initially kind of late in the day, so the lighting here is a little bit dim. My makeup still looks pretty decent though, even though some shine did come through. These clips are with Hourglass Vanish Primer underneath, and I think it looks really nice. I also blew my nose pretty vigorously on this day, and I was pleasantly surprised to see minimal transfer. I just expected to see most of it gone, and it wasn't. I still get some shine during the day when I wear primer with this, but it doesn't affect the coverage or exaggerate pores, lines, and texture, which can be a big problem with luminous, kind of glowy foundations. Now, this is a bit too shiny, glowy for me on my shine-prone areas. This is a personal preference thing, but I think no matter your age, you will probably like this. If you like luminous, glowy foundations, and if you have, say, normal to dry skin, possibly even a combination skin, and you live in a less humid climate than I do, I mean, it did look really pretty and flattering. Let's talk about the new Milk Makeup Hydro Grip Gel Tint that everyone seems to be talking about all over social media. So this retails for $36 for 1 ounce. There are 15 shades. I have it in both 4, which is described as light neutral to warm, and 5, which is light neutral. This is cruelty-free, vegan, non-comedogenic, alcohol-free, and it contains less than 1% synthetic fragrance, and it looks like it is water-based. So this is supposed to be a 12-hour hydrating, weightless gel skin tint that won't fade, crease, or settle into lines, and it's supposed to give a light to medium coverage with a dewy finish. They also say it's clinically proven to boost skin's hydration by 24%, and it's supposed to stay glowy and never greasy, and it's supposed to be safe for sensitive skin, which I really appreciate as someone with sensitive skin and rosacea. There are skincare ingredients in here to deeply hydrate, boost moisture, support your skin barrier, smooth your skin, prevent fading and creasing, and keep it gripped to your skin for up to 12 hours. This has kind of a thick, runny texture that melts into my skin beautifully with the brush that they came out with that I really enjoy, not just with this, but I've been using this with other foundations too. I found that this applies very consistently for me over bare skin and over non-gripping primers. The application day you're seeing is the day I'm applying this over the Milk Makeup Pore Eclipse Blurring Primer, and there is a slight grip to this foundation, but not too much, so you can just sort of feel it kind of adhering to your skin, but it still gives you time to blend it out. Now, if you use a gripping primer underneath it, that grip factor is enhanced, as it should be. As I stated in the previous review, after applying it with the brush, I just like to gently tap it with a sponge just to fuse it into my skin further. I'd say I get medium coverage applying that way. Sometimes I like to apply skin tints with a dry sponge to get slightly lighter coverage that evens out my skin tone nicely and covers minor imperfections. Depending on how you apply this and whether or not you build it, I think you can get from sheer to medium coverage, so I'm also giving coverage a 5. Oh, and I don't notice a scent to this. I forgot to note that earlier. I would say the finish is dewy before setting, with or without primer. Now, it does have a tackiness to it. There was a day when I applied this with no primer underneath, and I just wanted to absorb some of that shine, that oil, before setting it with powder. I did that with a tissue, and despite this being a gripping skin tint, there was some transfer onto that tissue, but somehow it didn't affect the coverage at all. I would say both with and without primer, this is decent on my pores, but not completely smoothing. It's a little bit better with primer than without, and it has more of a glow to it when I don't use a primer or when I use a gripping primer than it does when I use a blurring or mattifying primer, which makes sense. With a mattifying or blurring primer, it stays in place well with minimal shine, just a nice glow through midday. I was kind of surprised about that. I thought it was just going to be a shiny disaster. It still looks pretty decent at the 8-hour mark. I mean, I can still see some shine coming through, but it's not greasy looking, and it still feels good through most of the day. As the end of the day draws near, I can start to feel it a little bit more on my skin. You can see here at about 9 hours, there's some more shine and texture coming through, and some areas where it's kind of starting to wear away. And without primer, it still looks good a few hours in, but the shine comes through earlier in the day. And it also tends to crease in my forehead line on days when I don't wear a primer with it, whereas it doesn't when I wear a primer. It doesn't matter what kind of primer. Although overall, I would say my makeup tends to look pretty decent throughout the day, no matter whether I'm wearing a primer or not. Now, even though this performed better than I thought, it's still not a product I'm necessarily going to reach for. I didn't love the pores, the texture, the settling, and it's a little bit too glowy for me. But I think if you have normal to dry skin and moderate texture and moderately sized pores, this might be something you want to look at. Chanel quietly reformulated their Ultra Le Tint Velvet Foundation a couple months ago. It's been under the radar. I'm not even sure how I found out about this, but I'm glad I did because, in my opinion, reformulations are basically new foundations since they often perform so differently than the original. Now, it looks like they took out talc and SPF, which is probably a welcome change for many. This retails for $55 for 1 ounce. There are 15 shades, and I grabbed it in B30, which is what I usually am in Chanel foundations. Can I just say, as a side note, that I cannot stand how Chanel does their foundation swatching on their website, how they separate it out. I find it so extremely unhelpful. Am I alone in that? Let me know in the comments down below, and let me know how you feel about any of these foundations while you're at it. Have you tried them? Do you intend to? So let's talk about the claims. This is supposed to be a long-wearing, ultra lightweight foundation for normal combination skin with a velvet matte finish. Now, don't check out if you don't have normal combination skin, because I think you'll see, I kind of feel like this could work for anybody. This is silicone based, and it has this Chanel exclusive skin affinity complex that conceals the look of imperfections and instantly smooths the appearance of pores with these blurring effect powders. You're supposed to shake the bottle for optimal use until this ball inside stops shaking. Mine never really stops shaking, so I just shake it sufficiently. And they also say to apply it from the center of the face outward and build where necessary. This has a runny texture that applies and blends like a dream using any method, and it kind of fuses with your skin and sets, yet still gives you time to work with it. It doesn't cling to any dry areas I have. It applies equally as well on my oily, shine-prone areas as it does on my normal dry areas. And I'd say that's probably due to the alcohol that is in this foundation, which also is probably why it looks so extremely skin-like and smoothing on pores and texture. This evens out my skin beautifully and gives skin-like medium coverage when I apply it with my fingers and a bit less when I apply it with a brush. It's smoothing and flattering on all areas of my face and stays that way throughout the day, and has a beautiful, soft, natural velvet matte finish that I think is really pretty on all skin types because it doesn't have that luminosity that can sometimes actually exaggerate pores and texture. It's not too matte, it's not too glowy, it's just a nice in between, and it feels weightless. Now, there is a slight Chanel expensive scent to this foundation. Fragrance is listed in the bottom third of the ingredient list. If you've ever had a Chanel foundation or Chanel skin product, you're probably familiar with that. I noticed it when I first started applying it, but not after it's applied. So if I apply this with a damp sponge, I can get sheer skin evening coverage, and I can build it all the way to medium coverage if I apply it with my fingers. I can't feel it at all, no matter how long I wear it throughout the day. It doesn't get cakey or crease or settle into any of my lines that foundations can sometimes settle into. Now, I do get some moderate shine every 3 to 4 hours when I don't wear a primer that blots well and touches up with blotting powder just fine. It doesn't go into greasy territory, and I can get about 8 to 9 hours of wear when I'm not wearing a primer. And when I am wearing a primer, that shine factor, the time between blotting, is extended, and so is the wear. I really think any skin type could wear this foundation. It's beautiful and skin-like and wears well throughout the day, and I think it's a really pretty luxury option if you love a skin-like foundation like I do. We have 2 new and improved tinted moisturizers from Laura Mercier, Natural Dewy and Blurred Matte. They retail for $50 each for 1.52 ounces, so you're getting a good amount of product for your money. I mean, the typical foundation or tinted moisturizer size is usually 1 ounce. There are 20 shades available for each, and as luck would have it, I tried Natural Dewy first in the shade 1C Oak, which is described as light with cool undertones. You'll see in the application clips what it looks like on me, but at first I thought it was a little bit pale, so when I purchased the Blurred Matte tinted moisturizer, I decided to get it in a shade slightly deeper, the next shade, which is 2N Maple purple, described as light with neutral undertones. And I want you to see the difference in these two shades, 2C and 2N, on the back of my hand. Look at the difference. I think 2N will work for me better in the dead of summer. I just cannot get over the difference in these, even though they're tinted moisturizers and can span several skin tones. I think there should be a shade in between. So let's get into how these are new and improved and what I think of them. I am going to talk about Natural Dewy first, since I tried this one first. Now, they do both have SPF 30. This is alcohol free and has less than 1% synthetic fragrance. And like the previous formula, this is supposed to give you 24-hour plus hydration, SPF 30 protection, and a natural skin-like finish. They improved it by increasing the wear time to 16 hours, increasing the coverage, improving the shade range with no white cast or oxidation, and by having the formula improve your skin tone immediately and over time. It's an 88% skincare water-based formula. It's supposed to help your skin look plump and naturally hydrated with a dewy finish that lasts all day. And it's supposed to be humidity resistant and stay in place and not melt off your face. And since there are 3 tinted moisturizer variants, there is a handy chart to help you select one. So I'll put that here as we move into the application clips. So the texture of this is fairly thick, but it's creamy and blends out nicely with a brush to give light coverage. And with my fingers, I can massage it in like a moisturizer and get sheer coverage and build it up where needed. So I would say with my fingers, I could build it from sheer to light coverage. It kind of melts into my skin in this really natural way. I do smell a slight sunscreen scent upon application that dissipates once it's applied. This is pretty shiny, dewy before setting, but my skin looks smooth and healthy. Sometimes that shine can really exaggerate pores and texture. This doesn't do that. And sometimes with products that have this much hydration and dewiness, when I set my makeup with powder, I can lose some of that coverage because the powder sort of absorbs it and lifts it a bit. That also doesn't happen because it adheres to my skin so beautifully. And once it's set, it has a natural bordering on soft matte finish initially. I haven't had much luck with traditional tinted moisturizers, especially not dewy ones, but this one sort of surprised me. We had a lot of thunderstorms going on when I was testing this out, so please excuse my lighting. Of course, this works well on my normal dry areas, and I would say over the course of about 3 to 4 hours, that soft matte finish turns into more of a natural finish until I start to get some shine breakthrough. But it still looks and feels good. I can blot lightly with a tissue and apply some blotting powder and continue with my day without worrying about it breaking down. It really surprised me, and if I wear a primer underneath, it really doesn't matter what kind. That whole shine breakthrough process takes much longer, and it feels good all day. I expected this to be a shiny, greasy disaster, and I ended up really enjoying it. It gave me what it claims, which I thought would only be the case if I had normal skin or lived in an area with a normal climate, not extreme heat and humidity. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is probably not going to be a go-to in the dead of summer, but for milder months and winter, of course, I think it's really nice. If you have a combination to dry skin, mature skin, I think this could definitely be a winner for you. And now let's talk about the Blurred Matte New and Improved Tinted Moisturizer. It looks like they increased the shine control to 24 plus hours while hydrating over 16. They also optimized this shade range without oxidation. And it says they increased the sun protection to SPF 30. So it must have been lower before. This is a water-based, oil-free formula, which is supposed to reduce the appearance of pores and give you a blurred matte finish. And just like this, it has a moderately thick texture that blends into my skin really nicely with my fingers, a brush, or a damper dry sponge to give anywhere from sheer to light medium coverage. They recommend applying it with your fingers and then building where you need it with a brush, but I've had really great luck with all those methods. And I've also found that when I apply it with my fingers or a brush, that lightly tapping over it after with a dry sponge helps softly mattify it and it helps my pores look smoother. This has that same soft sunscreen scent that this has. Now, before setting this with powder, to me, no matter if I applied this with no primer and no matter what type of primer I used, This gives me more of a natural finish rather than a matte or soft blurred matte finish. And I would say it looks okay. It looks pretty decent on my pores and texture before setting. It's not until after I set it with powder that it gives me that soft matte blurred finish and looks smoother on my pores and texture. It's not the best on my pores and texture, but it does look smoother than it does before I set it. Now, I can go about 2 or 3 hours, and no matter what, with or without primer, even mattifying primers, I get breakthrough shine with this. You can see here at 6 hours with no primer and in bright sunlight with Huda Beauty Easy Blur Primer underneath, there is some shine going on, which I wasn't expecting from the non-dewy version, the blurred matte version, but it does blot decently. I can blot it and use a blotting powder if I want and continue about my day. I just wasn't expecting to get shine that quickly. When I don't wear a primer though, I can start to feel it on my face when that shine breakthrough comes through, which I really don't like. My skin looks pretty even toned still when I wear a primer underneath. There is still product on my face later in the day. I think this clip is from around 9 hours. I do experience more wearing away quicker when I don't have a primer underneath. I don't know if it's the level of humidity I have here or what. I would say if you have combination to normal skin and live in a less humid environment, you may want to try this. I'm actually surprised that I liked this one more, especially when dewy foundations are such a struggle for me, but I was looking at these claims and I ended up being really pleasantly surprised, and I just didn't quite get what I wanted from this one. I would love to know if you tried these or any of these foundations or tinted moisturizers down in the comments below. I have an entire playlist full of foundation reviews. You can check out more here. I hope you enjoyed this and found it helpful. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!